Just a little bit about myself. I'm Sheldon Gardner, a reporter at the St. Augustine Record. Been doing it for about more than 6 years now, and I've covered different beats. I've covered the police beat and covered courts, and now I cover City of St. Augustine Beach and City of St. Augustine, and so my experience in gathering records has been somewhat different depending on the beat. I request records more, I think, now that I'm covering city government, but when I covered police, it was still a routine thing back then, and still is even more now. When I covered police, I routinely requested police reports. It's very useful in getting some of the background about what really happened at the scene, or what the police say about what happened at the scene. And covering city commissions, I request all kinds of things. For instance, I've recently requested information about salaries, about the number of sewer spills in the city from Hurricane Irma and Matthew. Requested emails before. I've requested a lot of different types of information, and I found it to be pretty simple. I haven't had really many challenges with getting information from the places that I need to get information from. One of the biggest challenges is that I've experienced is the cost sometimes, because if your request is extensive enough that it's going to require the city or whatever agency you're asking the information from, if it's going to require them a lot of time to look through the records, to compile the information, they have a legal right in Florida to charge a reasonable fee to cover that cost. Now, reasonable is the key word, but it's in Florida statute that they're able to charge that. So that's been an issue sometimes. It was a while back when we were searching for information about the 450th anniversary. There was a big celebration here a couple years ago, and I got a lot of emails from city officials, and it's not really complicated, but sometimes it can take a lot of time for them to get the information to you if it's a big request, like, a year's worth of emails. And you want to be precise. You want to know what you're looking for, because the wording is important. If you have a really big search, they're probably going to come back with a pretty big cost to actually get those records to you. So recently, I requested text messages. The City Commission recently heard or had discussion about the Confederate monument in the plaza, and they had a couple meetings before that, and I decided I wanted to check and see if there was texting going on during the meeting, and so I requested that information and didn't really get didn't get much back, but I got a couple of texts that weren't that big of a deal. But if it's about public business, it's a public record. So it's an agency employee or a commissioner, official, someone like that, and they're texting, even on their private cell phone, about public business, then it's a public record. Public records means all documents, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, films, sound recordings, data processing software, or other material, regardless of the physical form, characteristics, or means of transmission, made or received pursuant to law or ordinance, or in connection with the transaction of official business by any agency. So that's pretty broad. Yeah, it came up. I use Facebook a lot. I use Twitter too, mainly for just keeping tabs on what's going on. Check on public officials. The mayor has a Twitter account. Some of the other commissioners have Twitter accounts. The cities have Twitter accounts. So that's good. And then Facebook, there are groups that I follow to check and see what's going on. Like, there's a group that's dedicated to congestion in St. Augustine, which is always a big topic. And, again, the city officials have their Facebook pages, and I've used that to, find something like breaking news, but also to add to a story. There was an example with Hurricane Irma when Marco Rubio came to town, and he was talking about the aftermath. It was just after Hurricane Irma hit. I was writing a story about his visit because he came to the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, and later that day, after I had covered that, he went to Volano Beach and tweeted about, look at the destruction here in Volano Beach, and here's this house. And so I included that in my story, that, he tweeted out and visited Volano Beach. I can't remember exactly what I said, but something like that. Well, most of my requests are either done over the phone or via email. They're usually not super formal. I mean, I'll send an email that says, please send me a list of all the sewer spills in the city for the past year. And it can be any kind of thing, but that's usually how it works. Is I'll send an email, make the request. They get back to me and say, we've received your request, we're going to review it, and if there's any fee, we'll let you know. And then they either provide it or they say it's going to take a lot of time, and we'll need a deposit to start the process, and then I have to pay the deposit if that comes up, and then they get the records. Sometimes I request it in person, like for the sewer spills for Irma. I went down to visit the deputy or the assistant public works director, and just asked him for the records there, and he gave them to me while I was at the office, just a couple sheets of paper. So there are different ways you can do it, but usually it's in writing. It's in writing, it's official then, and they have to respond, regardless of who you are. They don't just have to respond to me, the reporter. I don't have any greater access to public records than you do or than any other person does. So they have to respond to every public records request, and you can do that via email. So a public official, or really any elected official, tells you something, usually there's a record to back it up, and it's your right to be able to inspect the records and look at them. And oftentimes you'll find through reviewing the records that there's more to the story. So I encourage people to do that. Just request it is what I would say. It's their job to know what's exempt, and so just ask for it. Ask for it anyways. Other than the Florida statute, which lays out all the rules for, what records are records and what things are exempt, because there are exemptions. There's a manual called Government in the Sunshine that's published every year, and you can get it on the Attorney General's website, Florida Attorney General, and it goes through a lot of different things, and it includes updated case law, like about text messages and emails and instant messages and things like that, and how the courts have looked at those types of records, and are they public records, and that kind of thing. So that's really handy. It's very, very detailed. It's a big document, and it's online. So.